to quote our commander-in-chief, we're going to drill, baby, drill. But let's take a step back for a second. Let's talk about that for a second. Do you think that our nation might depend a little too much on the Middle East for oil and gas?
Welcome to the Shifted Hunter Podcast. I'm Derek Talbot, your host, and today we are talking about public lands are under pressure, and it's not just hikers and hunters who should care. Today I'm sitting down with John Lacroix, owner and race director of the Human Potential Running Series, to talk about what's really at stake and why hunters and runners are more aligned than you think. This is a conversation about land, legacy, and standing together before it's too late. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me, Derek.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself so we have an idea of what kind of accolades you have in this kind of topic.
I don't know if they're accolades, but I'm excited to have the conversation.
Right on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, as you said, I'm the owner and race director of the Human Potential Running Series. We're here in my studio. Thanks for joining me here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure. My race series is the largest trail and ultramarathon running series in the state of Colorado. We put on trail running events on private lands and public lands all around Colorado. We have 12 events, mostly here in the Front Range. But I also volunteer a considerable amount of my free time
Right.
to a variety of advocacy efforts. Here in the state of Colorado, I volunteer my time on the planning committee for the Partners in the Outdoors Conference. I also volunteered my time as a member of the executive committee for Fix Crust, which worked to help rewrite Colorado's recreational use statute, which helped reopen the 14ers and also protect private landowners from individuals who may get hurt while recreating or hunting on their properties.
So now let me stop you real quick. Now, are you talking about, like, when you say the 14ers, are you talking like Mount Bros?
Yeah, 14ers that are publicly held. And there's a few of them.
Oh, okay.
Just old mining claims that folks bought over the years, and they're still privately owned. I think a lot of folks believe that all the 14ers are on public land. They're not.
Okay.
So those private landowners were basically allowed to close their land to access. So I helped get those reopened. I also volunteer my time on Outside 285. It is a regional partnership, many stakeholders. A lot of them are public land officials, land managers, working together to improve trails, trailheads, but also conservation efforts, habitat considerations, healthy forests, healthy herds, stuff like that. We do a lot of work together.
Right on.
And then on the federal level, I volunteer my time to the Coalition for Outdoor Access, and I am on their policy committee. And I helped write language for the SOAR Act, which was part and parcel of the EXPLORE Act, which stands for Expanding Public Lands Outdoor Recreation Experiences Act. And I've been on that committee for, I think, almost 4 years now, and have received quite an education on actually writing legislation for our public lands. So that's kind of the angle that I'm coming from, all of these experiences that I have and have acquired over the last 7 or so years. And I'm excited to have a conversation. So what do you got?
All right, well, let's dig into it. All right, we got some big picture questions here for you. So can you explain what's happening with the selling off or transfers of public lands?
Nothing.
Nothing, huh? Okay.
Nothing yet. Well, let's be clear first. Well, I want to start out with this. First of all, I'm an independent, okay? I'm somebody, I really actually enjoy seeing the big picture. I enjoy being in the middle so that I can appreciate perspectives from both sides. And I'm also somebody that, for lack of a better term, I try to see the forest through the trees, meaning I don't hone in or focus on somebody's delivery or word choice.
Right.
I try to, well, what's the point? Like, what's the point of this conversation, or what's the point that this person's trying to make? So, selling off of public lands, let's be clear, that's something that's been going on for 30 years. Every year, the federal government does land swaps. They acquire new land, and they sell land that they have. This is not new. This is not news. This is not... I think that there's a lot of folks out there who are sounding the alarm, and there's a little bit of doom and gloom just because of who's in charge. Mm-hmm. And that's fair. That's fair. A little bit of perhaps unhingedness and just uncertainty about what's really going to happen.
Right.
So in terms of what the Trump administration announced in March of this year, they're starting to create a plan where they want to sell off federal lands that are within 3 miles of urban areas. So essentially, they want to expand the footprint of the urban area a little further into federal lands. And naturally, most folks would argue, well, that's because developers are going to reap the profits of being able to build hotels or housing or what have you on those lands. There's also a consideration that they consider land within 10 miles of towns of 5,000 people. And I think that's the one that's a little more alarming.
So can I ask you a question on that?
Yeah.
So say that does happen.
Yeah.
Can't they just turn around and be like, oh, well, the township is a little bit farther now. We can go 10 more miles. So now before you know it, we're 20 miles out.
Sure. So what you're suggesting is give them an inch, they take a mile.
Right.
Yeah, always a possibility. Here in Colorado, I think part of the conversation is we have a housing crisis in our mountain communities. And part of that crisis is there's really a limited number of lands that developers can actually develop on.
Right.
There's some legislation out there and there's rules out there that says that the federal government doesn't actually have to sell the land to a developer. They can lease the land to a developer. They can enter into a 100-year lease with a developer who wants to build affordable housing or mountain housing they do it for a lot of these ski resorts who need staff to come in through the season and work at their resort.
Right.
But they're not paying a lifty enough
right,
to actually afford the housing that exists in a town like Dillon.
Because those are typically second and third and fourth homes for people, though, right?
Correct, right. So we're talking $1 million homes in some of
Right.
these places. So these lifties are coming in. They're kids. They're in their 20s, right? They just want to work on the lift for the winter at the ski resort. And so the ski resorts are like Vail, as an example, and Keystone. They have built like dorms for their staff to live in. And they need land to be able to do that. So the Forest Service can essentially lease their land to the developers to build these dorms to create affordable housing. And it kind of solves the crisis.
Provided that's what happens, though.
Correct. And it is what's happening,
Right.
to be fair. So, But to me personally, I think that this idea of considering land within 10 miles of 5,000 people, that would be like a town like Fairplay. That like Fairplay, Colorado, one of the highest towns in the country. I think that's legit their population.
Right.
10 miles out of Fairplay is a huge swath of federal land.
Right.
And that would absolutely be detrimental to the habitat for sure. So, but let's be clear. At this point, nothing's happened. Nothing out of normal, nothing that is unusual for the last 30 years has happened. There's just conversations.
Right.
And as we've seen, some of those conversations are here today, could be gone tomorrow.
Right.
So I would caution and say, let's just pump the brakes a little bit on the alarm and actually wait and see what is going to come down the pipeline.
Right.
And to be fair, other folks would say, we can't wait and see. Like, we need to be like ready to defend this right now. And I agree with that too. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, because I came across some different things where there was a talk of transferring the federal land to state land boards. And state land boards, you don't get to, there's no public access to most of them. Those are designed to be sold off, is my understanding, to be sold off to create money for the school system, is the way I understood the state land boards work. So when they get a hold of this land, if that land was to be transferred to them, then all hunting, all recreation, all camping, all access is done. It's not happening because they're going to start working on ways, because if they don't lease the land out or anything to make any kind of money off of it, then they have to sell it out. So then that allows them to be able to sell it without having to go through any red tape or anything like that.
You know, Derek, in my experience, and there's groups like Mountain Land Trust here in Colorado, and what they do, it's their job to find. Sorry, I'm getting a drink here. Their job is to find privately held lands that they could work with the landowner to turn into conservation land. And you're right. Sometimes that land doesn't come with an easement for access. A lot of times it does,
right?
You know, so it really depends on the landowner, like the actual, like what does that, the private landowner, do they want that land to just be? Let me back up a second.
All right.
We have to go like way back, once upon a time for a second, and we're going back to a guy named John Muir. And another guy named Gifford Pinchot. And Gifford Pinchot is the guy that actually first created the Department of the Interior. And his idea of securing public land was for that land to be preserved. And John Muir, his idea was that the land should be secured for conservation. So the difference between conservation and preservation. Preservation is, we're going to acquire this land for generations to enjoy its beauty, but not use it. It's there. And John Muir, conservation is, we're going to secure these lands for us, our children, and our children's children to actually enjoy it, to use it, to be on it,
right,
to adventure through it. So in a lot of these cases, some of these private landowners, they have a choice. Is it going to be preserved or conserved? And so they do get to decide that. So some private landowners might say, I want this to be conservation land that can be used only for hunting.
Okay.
And perhaps some well-to-do gentleman who owns hundreds of thousands of acres of land that is a ranch, he's going to call it conservation land.
Right.
And it's going to have a conservation easement. And you get to go on that private land and hunt on it. And you might pay him for that. But that land is also being conserved for the habitat, and it creates healthy habitats.
Right.
So that's kind of the give and take. And that's the purpose of some of these partnerships,
Right.
Land acquisitions, and things that, you know, maybe the private landowner is actually giving the land over to a trust specifically for these uses.
Right.
And it's written into the deed and it can't be changed.
Right.
You know?
Okay. Well, let's move on then. Who is pushing for public lands to be sold and transferred?
Conservatives.
Conservatives. All right.
I'm just going to say it. That's it.
Okay.
And who wants to keep the land? Liberals.
Yeah. Politics.
No two ways about that one, man.
So, what are the main arguments used by supporters of selling public lands?
I think there's some really good arguments.
Yeah.
And we gave one,
Right.
which was some of our mountain communities in Colorado. It's supply and demand. There's a demand.
Well, we have the supply.
Well, there's
It's just we can't afford them because they're so expensive.
Yeah, there's a
Because they're
supply of
second and
homes.
third homes.
Right. So then there's a demand for more affordable housing.
Correct.
But the supply of land to support building that housing doesn't exist.
Right.
So there's this topsy-turvy perspective there, right? I think that timber has come into the conversation. We want to sell lands for timbering. And I think some of that is, you could argue that it's self-inflicted wounds on some of the tariffs that we've levied against our neighbors who we've historically relied on for timber.
Right.
And we want to be more self-reliant. So you might sell off some of the land so that it can be strictly for us to acquire timber from.
Right.
However, I'm not hearing so much of that. I'm hearing more just, let's just use the existing public lands for timber harvest.
Right.
I think that, yeah, the proponents of the sale of these lands, I think most of it is to generate wealth.
Right.
I don't see it any other way. Unless we're selling off a parcel of public land to a private entity that's building a Boy Scout camp.
Right.
Or some kind of outdoor education facility,
Right.
or something like that. I think that would be selling the land to maintain the original purpose of the land that's being sold.
Right.
But other than that, man, I think some of it is budget. We have way too much land than we are fiscally able to manage.
Right. I've come across in my research recently on this stuff on how the federal government gets paid for certain things and how state and private lands get paid for certain things,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be oil, gas, mining, whatever it is, and just the parcels being next to each other on how much the difference is. And it's huge. If Congress maybe changed some of those laws and made it to where the federal government got more for their share, as opposed to this guy over on state and private land is getting 20% and we're getting 10% on federal. I mean, maybe we close that gap a little bit and,
You make up another good point, Derek. To quote our commander in chief, we're going to drill, baby, drill. But let's take a step back for a second. Let's talk about that for a second. Do you think that our nation might depend a little too much on the Middle East for oil and gas?
Absolutely.
So is there a need for us to be a little more independent?
I would agree.
Okay. We have a lot of land that we could drill into to acquire what we need to do that. Unfortunately, that land is public land we've set aside to conserve and preserve. So the conversation is, I think we need to sell some of these lands so that we can open it up so we can achieve that goal. So this is where I come in so I'm an independent and I'm just trying to see the forest through the trees.
Right.
And we don't have to agree with the way they're going about it. We don't have to agree with the way it's being communicated. But let's just talk about the subject matter.
Right.
And the subject matter is, we agree, Derek. We could probably be a little more independent, oil and gas wise.
Right.
Some folks argue that this pissing into the wind contest with Canada is because Canada has an awful lot of land that is being drilled for oil and gas and could also be drilled. Same with Greenland. We could look at Russia's, and by the way, I'm not saying that the actions we've taken against our Canadian neighbors in this process is right or just, or that I support it. I'm just saying it kind of makes sense.
Right.
Going after Greenland, precious metals, things that we need to be more independent to build microchips, circuitry,
Right.
things that we rely on China for. Well, China has those metals. We really don't. Where do they exist closest to us? Greenland.
Right.
Whoa. So maybe we should take a look at Greenland, because this is just the natural progression of the world. Of course, we're going to fight over land for resources. And if you're a part of the population that, it is not just, we're talking genocide, we're talking about aggressors, Russia going into Ukraine. That's not about
precious metals.
It's about precious metals. No, I think it really is. I think it's a huge part of it.
Right.
Next thing you know, Trump's in office and we're having conversations with Ukraine about, we'll help you end this war, but we need a precious metals deal. Yeah, well, we want some of the precious metals that Russia went in there to get. And so we're trying. So I'm not saying that the way we're going about it is humane or the right way. I'm just saying that naturally, over the course of human history, we're entering a time in our history that we have long talked about. It will come. We just didn't expect it would come in our lifetime.
Right.
And it did. So I think that some of the sales of these, we got to sell the public land because we got to drill, baby, drill. We got to go tap into our resource so we can get ahead.
But why not lease that land instead of selling it off? Lease it to someone and then get you a higher percentage rate of your royalties on federal.
What a great question.
Then you get to keep it.
So this is again where I'm saying, like, we can agree on what we need to do, but the way we're going about doing it makes very little sense.
Right.
And you're right. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to look at and solve this problem. And I think that the big issue right now, and why we're having this, and others are having these conversations, is because it seems like it's also rushed. It's like, we got to do this now.
Right.
Like there's like
a big push.
a sense of urgency. And I actually kind of agree with the urgency.
Yeah.
But I no, we need to get the experts to the table and tell them, and it's urgent. Here's your, like when you were in school, man, like your teacher. By the way, you guys have an exam on Friday. I failed to mention that to you. It's Wednesday.
Yeah, no,
we gotta.
When it came to that,
good luck.
I'll wing it.
But we could do the same thing to these experts. Hey, by the way, this was due yesterday, so. Like, you're not leaving this room.
Right.
We do it all the time. You're not leaving this room until you draft this bill.
Right.
I don't care if you're in here for 3 weeks, no shower, no bathroom breaks. We'll deliver food to you. But you're writing this bill and you're not leaving.
Right.
Why? They should be doing the same thing with the experts on how to be fiscally responsible to the American people, responsible to the habitat that we once swore to protect.
Right.
And we're just not.
Right. So, what does multiple use mean in relation to public lands? And
this is cool.
How would that be affected?
This is a cool question. This is more my wheelhouse. Probably a little less opinion and more
right.
Meat and potatoes here. So, our public lands have been conserved for multiple uses. And so, multi-use refers to fishing, hunting, off-road vehicle, driving OHV, fly fishing, orienteering,
hiking, camping,
adventure races, hiking. That's right. Hiking, camping, tourism, general tourism. And like anything that is a permitted use of that land. That they say is okay, an okay use of that land. Understanding that there are some areas that are protected areas. There are some areas with a wilderness designation. So like in a wilderness designated area, wheels are not allowed. Engines are not allowed. So if there's blowdowns on the trail in a wilderness area,
right.
It's actually illegal to use a chainsaw to cut those trees and clear the path.
So they're cutting by hand.
They're still using two-man handsaw, like
cross-cut.
Okay. Yeah, you Forest Service, you need to get like a cross-cut certification to be able to even do it. So yeah, like it's still multi-use land, but some of the approved uses have been taken away because of the designation.
Right.
But yeah, multi-use refers to all of the uses. There's multiples of them.
So then it's safe to say that there's a lot of users that could be affected by certain land deals going through then, you know?
Correct. Yeah. So it doesn't just affect hunters. It affects trail runners.
Right.
It affects mountain bikers. It affects anglers.
Equestrian riders.
Absolutely. People that, I mean, here in Colorado, the OHV community, off-road vehicle community, they would tell you that they've been under attack for years now as more and more of their roads are being decommissioned and disappearing.
And I would say that from being kind of in that space a little bit, a lot of them like to blame the side-by-side guys that have their little super-duper razor vehicles that they can fly up and down roads with and stuff. And I'll tell you, I've seen people go in places that they shouldn't be going in the first place, too. You know, I've gone down something and there's not supposed to be a motorcycle or anything, and just seeing, you know, a bunch of them going by.
You know, I'm one of those people that say those UHVs are a hell of a lot of fun.
Oh,
I've been in them, using them, like, yeehaw.
I've almost died riding one.
But when you're in one, I for sure notice the impact that I'm having on that road.
Right.
And the more of those that were introduced into some of our areas here in Colorado, the more damage that was indeed being done. And a UHV does a hell of a lot more damage to the resource than a four-wheeler or a dirt bike, really.
Well, I mean, probably even more than what a car would do, a regular four-wheel drive vehicle, because, I mean...
Some of these dudes are like legit.
I mean, yeah.
It's like a Baja rally
absolutely.
race.
Absolutely. They're flying through stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's just like, no, guy. Like, so, you know, you got to consider, like, whatever your use is, you need to do that responsibly.
So there's a lot of us at stake, really, when it comes to all this. And we all have pretty much a big dog in the fight.
I think
really.
So. Yeah. I've reached out to some hunting groups here in Colorado over the last year. And we don't always get along because I have a race during hunting season.
Right.
And I always, why are you guys running during hunting season? And I always respond, why are you guys hunting during running season? I mean, what do you guys think we want to be out here running when it's 110 degrees? Like, so trying to reach out and create a relationship with, as a running group, trying to create a relationship with the hunting group feels impossible.
Right.
Like there's some kind of weird Berlin Wall. And I'm very much in the place of, hey, like, no, really, we should be working together.
Right, absolutely.
There's a lot that we can do together, but we're not, because you guys are on this scorched earth campaign right now. Just like with new hunting laws and rules coming down the pipe here in Colorado, and the introduction to wolves, that's affecting hunters, and loss of roads and access to actually be able to drive in closer to your kill and get it out. Like, yeah, your hackles are high, but hey, man, trail runners also use those roads, and we also want that access, and we also care about the habitat and the wildlife, and so we should be working together. But what's up?
You know, I've been down to the race that runs through.
I'll say it's in the
Sangre de Cristos.
Yeah.
I've been down there for two years in a row for the full week with hunters that were down there. Both years I had bow hunters, and they weren't gun hunters. And you said the gun hunters give you far more troubles than what the bow hunters do. Is that?
Yeah. So, we've been down there, God, I think 8 years, and this will be year 8.
Okay.
First couple of years, I had the race scheduled during rifle, and it was either the first or last weekend of first rifle.
Right.
Muzzleloader, actually, I think.
Okay.
I'm not sure. There's a gun.
No, that would make sense. Muzzleloader season, because if you're always holding it in September, this like the third week, I believe, is muzzleloader season.
And those hunters they're coming up from Texas. They're coming up from Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska. They're coming in. That's where they've always hunted. Now, all of a sudden, there's this running event. I get it. But it doesn't say land of only one use. It says land of many uses.
Right.
On the Forest Service signs. And we need to share that resource no matter what. It does. We don't get to close the forest for hunting season, just like we don't. Well, I guess they kind of do close the forest in non-hunting season, but
Right.
but that's so the habitat can grow and flourish. So, so yeah, I've been shown I've had hunters offered to show me their shotgun. I would love to. Just can you make sure I get a good view down the inside of the barrel? I'd like to see the inner machining of your barrel is really fascinating to me. It's just there's no need for that.
Right, absolutely.
I mean, so I made the conscious decision. You know what? Let's move it to archery. Different crowd,
Right.
and
we're a little different.
Yeah, we moved it over, and the archery guys love us. The gun guys you guys are just being out here. You're affecting the herd. You're scaring the wildlife away, and then like they drive off on their ATV.
Right.
And I was like, dude, like we're running down the trail and we're with the elk and and they're not moving for us.
Right.
But as soon as you guys start driving down with an ATV, they're gone. Right. So let's be real.
Well, and that's a thing that, like I think I told you this, that when I was down there, coming from the Midwest and seeing how hunters hunt out here, I mean, the majority that I see out there, I wouldn't classify as a real hunter. I mean,
well, they're not getting up at the ass crack.
They're not already in the woods an hour before the sun's coming or before shooting.
They've had their coffee first.
Yeah, they've had their coffee. It's 8 o'clock.
Getting rid of the hangover.
Now they're strolling out, and then they're back before afternoon.
Yeah.
They're never even out there until it even gets dark. And then I would also say, well, why does it matter if people are going up and down the trail? You're trying to hunt on the trail?
You're not supposed to be shooting across a road or trail. You're not supposed to be shooting from
a
road or trail.
A road, it is. And I haven't got clarification on this. I'm still trying to get clarification
please
on
do.
it.
Tell me.
But on roads, it is 50 feet from the center line is where you can start shooting. So you have to be 50 feet from the center line off on the wherever, on a public road to be able to shoot. Now I'm trying to get clarification on, because I've seen something that was saying that is if you're on a trail, you can't shoot down it or across it, but you can shoot from it as long as you're on the edge of it.
That's correct.
And I'm still waiting to find out if that's...
The point is you can't shoot across.
Correct.
So all these hunters are like, the runners are there and it's, it's a safety issue. And like, you can't shoot across the road anyway. And it's your responsibility of the hunter to know where you are, where you're aiming your rifle and what you're shooting towards and over.
Right.
You need to be sure of your shot. I'm pretty sure that's in the
absolutely
rules.
It's in hunter education. It's all basic stuff that you learn when
So this, runners look an awful lot like a white-tailed deer. Like the hell they do. We wear the.
I don't know. There's some people that wear some pretty odd outfits when they're out there running.
Dude, we wear the most DEI colors in the whole forest when we're running nowadays, right? The bow hunters are way more chill,
right?
And I think it's because no, they really need to be sure of their shot,
right. Well, it has to be closer too. I'm not plugging you away at 400, 500, 600 yards.
Right.
You need to be within 60 yards.
Oh, dude, if you can shoot an arrow from 600 yards accurately, you should be you're an Olympian, right?
Right.
A little bit of frustration on my part where there's it's just to say, it's not to make fun of hunters. I respect very much what y'all do and what you're into. That's your thing.
Right.
And for you, it's about sustenance and providing for your family.
Right.
And
cuts my carnivore bill way down.
Right. Yeah. and mine's way up.
Right.
I respect it greatly.
Right.
And I respect your use of the land. What I don't respect are the attitudes,
right,
and the irresponsible attitudes and comments that are doing your user group absolutely no favors.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely. I think there's kind of a disconnect, on how the lands should be used, especially when it comes to, hunters. And, I don't want to pick on, rifle hunters or anything like that too much, but, in my own experience, I've come across with rifle hunters tend to have more of an attitude than what bow hunters do, but you get the same on both sides.
We can't control everybody in our user groups.
Right.
It's not, but we should all take on the responsibility of, hey.
Right. We need to work together on this.
Fucking knock it off.
Right.
What if I was a hunter, I would totally be, hey, no, guys, seriously, knock it off.
Right.
What we stand to lose through this behavior, you're not helping anybody.
Right. Absolutely. And I kind of think, to me, I think it would be an advantage having the runners go up and down the trail, because what I would have done was already been back where I needed to be. And while you guys are being loud and running down the trail first thing in the morning or whatever, you're going to naturally push the animals off the trail to me anyways. So to me, I'm like, hey, I can use this to my advantage. But, they don't want to also talk about all the hunting pressure that they have down there.
In Boston, we would say, fuck you for making sense.
Son of a bitch. What could this mean for wildlife habitat and biodiversity? For selling off all these critical habitats, endangered land, we can't sell the land that the wolves are on.
I think the biggest issue that I'm seeing right now, and others are too, and probably why the alarm is really being sounded, is the conversation that's being had around the selling of the land is basically, we're going to go around EPA. We're going to go around NEPA. We're just done talking about those things.
Right.
We're good, Yeah. And so we're going to sell the land without having the conversation about what endangered species might live in that land. Let me give you an example. Here in Colorado, Indian Creek, we have a race there in October. It is the first day of rifle, usually. First weekend of rifle.
Yeah, because all of September is archery season, except for the
elk hunters come in, and this year we had a CPW guy come by the race and was like, "You guys are really having a race during rifle?" I was like, "You guys are rifling during a race?" Same thing. Like, yeah, man, we've been here for 12 years. Where have you been?
Right.
Anyway, at Indian Creek, there's a system of trails that hunters use. It includes the Colorado Trail goes through the area. Equestrians use it, and hunters use it. This time of year, it's hugely popular for turkey.
Right.
We have an event there in May, and throughout the spring here, Niwats. Throughout the spring here, we're off trail in some of these areas.
Ridiculous terrain.
Yeah, it's really hard terrain. And the turkey hunters are out. And it's funny, like, we see all the turkey, and there's no hunters at the turkey. And the hunter's like, hey, you guys, yeah, we know where the turkey are. They're up over there, kind of thing. But anyway, part of one of the groups that I'm in, we've been talking about deferred maintenance of those trails and the roads in that area.
So does that mean not doing trail work every year?
Yeah, basically. It was a very long time that there weren't any groups taking care of those trails by doing trail work or brushing back, cutting back the scrub oak.
Kind of like what we did last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you want to be able to use it, like, you got to take care of it. It doesn't take care of itself. Years and years ago, it's to my understanding that the Backcountry Horsemen, Douglas County Horse Group, maybe they might be more than just Douglas County, but they basically have just been riding their horses in the drainages of that area over the years, to the point that naturally trails formed.
Right.
And those trails look mighty official, but they're not. They're not official trails. They're not cataloged trails with the federal government. Like, on paper, they don't exist.
So they're just basically considered a social trail then? Is that okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sometimes they look like a herd path.
Right, yeah.
And we decided, what are we going to do? Either we're going to make those official trails, or we're going to decommission them and give those affected areas back to the habitat. So we did a study. And there is Rocky Mountain spotted owl, whose habitat is endangered, and the their habitat is considered critical. And Preble's jumping mouse, so a little mouse.
He's delicious to somebody.
Which is endangered in their habitat because of their habitat's endangered.
Right.
And both of those critters live in those drainages. And so we determined as a group, by following the law and going through a NEPA study and EPA study, there is literally no way that we would ever get a green light to build, improve, enhance any of those words to those social trails to make them official. It will never happen. The law says no.
Right.
It's critical habitat.
So they really need to get out there and decommission them then.
And that's what's going to happen. And what we're going to do instead is move those trails. We're going to build new trails on the ridge lines in that area instead of in the drainages.
Okay.
So the existing social trails will be decommissioned, obliterated, disappear. Nobody can go in there. Nobody can use it unless you're off trail.
Right.
And then new trails will be built on these ridge lines for people to enjoy instead. And so we're essentially moving these trails out of the critical habitat to a place that is, we're giving land back to the creatures.
Right.
So this is a conservation effort. It's a habitat effort.
Right.
It's also a recreation multi-use effort. Those trails will be used by mountain bikes, trail runners, hunters, and equestrian users.
Right.
Now, I don't think you hunters care either way, as long as you have access.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I mean, it's no big deal to go hike 10 miles to get into somewhere. Now that's not everybody though either. There's a lot of guys that, 1 mile is a long ways for them and they prefer to hunt from the road.
Trail runners and hikers, we don't care. Just make a couple shorter loops.
Right.
So we don't have to be out there all day.
Right. So I don't have to backtrack.
Mountain bikers, man, they really care about the flow.
Right.
The flowiness and
bank my turns.
Fun little features.
Yeah.
Shit like that. And the equestrians,
I'm sure that's no good for them.
Oh, not at all. Where's my horse going to get water?
Right. Better take some.
Let's talk about the 50 years of you guys
just going through here
building illegal trails.
Right.
So, that's like kind of the conversation that might come up is, we're hear your concerns, but we're trying to protect the resource here.
Right.
And it's not just for an owl and a mouse. It's deer, elk, bighorn sheep, black bear, mountain lion, bobcat, potentially lynx. The wolves might eventually get there. These are all the animals that travel through that area. Moose, regularly.
Right.
There's a balance.
Right. Yeah. And it's definitely tough, I think, especially nowadays. I mean, we're so modern. I mean, we're constantly consuming.
Well, we're going to have e-bikes out there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's the next thing. And I'm sure there's already some trails that allow e-bikes on them.
And just south of that area is the Rampart Range off-road use area where all the dirt bikes and four-wheelers and UTVs and
right around,
four-wheel drive vehicles can go and tear it up and recreate. And that's a whole nother can of worms. There's like hundreds of miles of road and trail down there that they use.
Right.
And I grew up in New Hampshire where the forest was small.
Right.
And the forest area that we're talking about is bigger than my state. It's bigger than New Hampshire.
Right. Right. Yeah. We're not talking about small pieces of land here. That's for sure. It's all good stuff, man. Have you heard anything about how this might affect indigenous lands or any tribal sovereignty by any chance?
That's a good question for my wife.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, we should have had her on too.
There's
because she's not busy.
There's a tribe in Washington that they live on the coast.
Mm-hmm.
And the land that abuts their sovereign land is federal. And they're needing to move.
Right.
Because of sea level rise, and a host of other factors. They just need to move their land.
Right.
And so, yeah, like there's conversation about the federal government giving land to a tribe so they can move further uphill.
But that could still be not on the tribe's best benefit, though, maybe, correct? I mean,
I see nothing but benefits for them.
I mean, I haven't looked into it, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah, I'm not a tribal expert,
right?
But I know, and a lot of I know some folks who are.
Right.
I know, like, one of the lead legal counsel individuals for the Navajo Nation runs with us.
Right.
I'll say that when you drive out to Navajo Nation or to Oklahoma, man, how nice of us to give them just the best land to farm. And
right. Good luck.
We did them dirty.
Oh, yeah.
No two ways about it.
Absolutely.
Any opportunity for tribes to acquire more land, different land, better land, there's no negatives to that.
Right.
And most of the legislation that I've read and helped write regarding lands.
What do you think the impact on fire management, watershed protection, and conservation would be?
I think this is where the logging conversation comes in.
Yeah.
So, I have it here that, right here. So in March of this year, 2025, Trump signed an executive order to ramp up timber production. Oh my God, we're going to clear cut the forests.
Right.
So again, we go back to the pissing contest we started with Canada, tariffs. Most of our lumber comes from them. You might notice it's the crooked 2x4s you buy at Home Depot right. from the crooked wood forest. No, I'm just kidding. So again, we need to be more self-reliant.
Right.
And we could talk all day about, I'm not a tariffs expert.
Right, yeah.
But we could talk all day about being more independent.
Right.
And is that good or bad? Neighbor relations, good or bad, like all of that, right?
Right, yeah.
But again, I want to, see the forest through the trees. Let's talk about this a minute. 85 years ago, this dude was created and introduced to us, and his name is Smokey the Bear.
Right.
Let me tell you about Smokey. Only you can prevent forest fires. No, really, it's just you now because we laid everybody else off. Smokey the Bear was created because there was a lot of irresponsible recreation as the general public went to the woods more,
right,
to recreate. After World War II, when I don't know if it was Eisenhower or FDR. Forgive me.
Right.
As we created our national park system, the goal was to make our national parks drivable tours.
Right.
Like you could see our nation's beauty without ever leaving your car. Right. And people are just starting fires. There's fires everywhere. So Smokey the Bear's created, and it's, hey man, like seriously, be responsible. Like cut the shit.
Leave no trace wasn't really a thing then.
No. Oh no. So over time, over the 85 years, only you can prevent forest fires. Only you can prevent forest fires and healthier forests. And the idea was healthier forest meant more lush forest, more forest. So our forests got thicker, and they grew thicker and thicker. Here in Colorado, we have this little beetle, Rocky Mountain bark pine beetle or whatever, blue beetle, shits blue or something, stains the wood. Right. And that beetle eats trees, mostly pine. And it will jump tree to tree. So as this beetle breeds, it needs the trees to be close enough so that it can jump to the next tree and continue to do its thing. And so that is what has led here in Colorado to there being large swaths of beetle kill forest.
Which is highly combustible.
Dude, it's like the perfect storm
Right.
of, yeah, man, fart, watch it go.
Right.
Right? So we didn't do ourselves a favor with Smokey the Bear because our forest became too thick, and then this beetle came along, and now it's just creating a tinderbox.
Right, yeah.
So now, in the last Trump administration, there were massive fires, forest fires in California, and they wanted federal aid to help fight and clean it up. And one of my favorite Trump quotes of all time, and again, this is not to say that I'm advocating or supporting this gentleman, but we told them to clean the floors, and they didn't. So now they want the federal government to pay for this, and we're not. They should have cleaned the floors. And at the time, there were like TikToks of like, my favorite TikTok of all time is a Latino woman out in the forest with a broom. And the quote's playing, and she's just sweeping needles and sticks, and like, you know, stops a minute to look up, and it's like,
funny.
Is this what he meant by clean the floors? Now, again, never mind the delivery or who said it. What was he saying?
We didn't do our job.
That's right. We have almost 700 million acres.
640 million of federal land.
That's an insane amount of land to have to manage. And our federal government, the USDA, who manages the U.S. Forest Service, and I believe the Bureau of Land Management, and the Department of the Interior, over the last 20 years, they have not been adequately funded with the money that is needed to pay for mitigation efforts to clean the floors, and thin the forest, and to do a what they would call a fuels mitigation project. If you're a hunter and you walk through the woods, and you might come across, you're in the Forest Service, you come across an area of trees, runners too, hikers too. All of a sudden, all the trees have like red X's on them. You might find a bearing tree with a metal placard on it, and it'll tell you the coordinates of that bearing and where to find the next one. And the federal government is setting, like, those bearing trees set the boundary of where they're going to cut timber to do a fuels mitigation project, to thin the forest, to clean the floors. And we don't have the staff. We don't have the equipment. We don't have enough funding to pay for the staff, pay for the equipment, to pay for the time to go and do this. And so he wasn't wrong, but it wasn't a California problem. It's a federal government problem that we haven't funded this nearly to the level that it needs to be. So now we're in a place where the answer is we got to go cut timber. Cut the timber, cut it down, sell it. We become more self-reliant. We don't need Canada's timber. And we get that work done that we have been failing to do for decades. So if you look at it from that perspective, does it sound like this logging operation is all that bad?
No, it doesn't.
It's needed.
Let me ask you this, though.
Sure.
In order to get to these, because these areas are remote. They're not easy to get to. So you have to have access for all of your machinery, your equipment, the semis to drag all the crap out.
This is why I get confused when the Forest Service starts decommissioning roads that are OHV accessible, and fire roads and such, because it's like, but we need that road to get in there to fight a fire, or we need that road to get in there for fire mitigation. Why are we getting rid of that road? Oh, habitat. It's like, I'm sorry, but the moose doesn't give a shit if it's a road or not. In fact, it probably enjoys it. Hell, right?
He wants the road, yeah.
Or an elk. Like, hell yeah, I'm not hitting my antlers on all this shit. Like,
I know bears prefer
absolutely
the roads
all
stuff.
the bear shit's on the road.
They love that.
You know, animals for sure will find the easiest route to water.
They're smart.
Right. Or wherever, wherever it is they need to go.
Right.
So yeah, some of these decommissioning efforts, I feel like it's, some of it I agree with.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to close that road for specific uses, but let's not get rid of the road.
Right.
Like,
maybe kind of like gate it off so people can't just
drive
through it, and then we need to go in and do access of cutting down.
But if you've got a fire, or we need to, call the forest a bit,
right?
You just take the gate down and head on in and let's go. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not a forest manager,
right? Yeah,
but I mean, I think it's worth the discussion,
right? Absolutely.
But yeah, so I look at it and I see that Smokey the Bear fucked us.
He had good intentions, though.
Absolutely, and Woodsy as well, right? Like we really took a dogmatic approach to what those two characters were selling the public, and we're paying for it,
right?
And so now a solution is timber harvest,
right?
And yeah, it's ugly,
right?
And yeah, there's a lot of slash, and I think if we do it responsibly and like clean up the slash, like clean the floors behind us and not leave. You and I have walked through some areas where there's a fuels mitigation project,
right?
And they leave a lot of slash,
right? Yeah.
And I've found full-on gallon jugs of chainsaw grease or chainsaw oil, and like other shit that they need, and I mean, it's just, we're not doing ourselves any favor. I think it is a solution, and I can see how people don't agree with it, but man, we need some big picture thinking about the need of it.
Right. So I came across this guy today, and it was talking about being a better land steward. And if I remember right,
you talking about me?
Yeah. The guy's name was Ethan Tapper, and he wrote a book about how to love a forest. And he works for the Forest Service cutting down forests. That's his job, to go in and mitigate types of stuff. And he was talking, I didn't get through the whole thing or anything like that because there's only so much time in the day. But he was talking about the difference in, having the old growth and, needing the new growth, and how we need to go in and we've got to not let everything just blow up because it chokes everything else out that's for all this other habitat that's down below it. And he says there are definitely two different ways to do it where, you kind of leave it and let it do what it's supposed to do, but we're not getting, can't remember exactly how he had put it, but it was something along the lines is, fire was what back in the day would go through and wipe all that stuff out and clear it all out. We still have that.
Our fires are massive today,
right?
By our standards,
right?
But pre-1870,
right,
there were some big fires,
right? And
some were started by our indigenous friends to steer the wildlife to certain areas,
right?
And it took care of itself,
right?
But again, because of Smokey the Bear, like we definitely, there's a need right now for us to really get in and do more we've messed it up.
Right.
Like we have done everything that we can to prevent fire.
Right. And they're getting worse and worse all the time.
But we need it. Like some of the trees don't germinate unless their pine cone catches fire.
Right.
So if you want more of that beautiful type of tree, if you want that tree to survive, it actually needs a fire.
Right.
But all we've done is, no fires. Can't have fires. Oh, it hasn't rained in like a month, Derek. We didn't get all our snow this spring. No fires come June.
Right.
Don't even fart out there. We're going to close the whole forest down to make sure nobody could even...
And I mean, we have places like that are around here that are year round. You're not burning a fire, period.
Right.
I mean,
and I get it. I agree with it.
I mean, if I was to have a property, I could tell you that if it was in the mountains,
you don't want your shit to burn.
There would be at least a 200-yard swath all the way around my property to try to protect it from burning to the ground.
Now, let's be fair, pre-1870, there weren't massive urban complexes
Correct.
right up against the forest.
Right.
And there wasn't $1 million fourth homes
Right.
and vacation
Right.
homes and cabins and a lot's changed in 150 years.
Right. I mean, you think about, from a hunter standpoint, the migration and the winter ranges that are affected by all of us continually moving in and now maybe potentially expanding our area of where we live out.
Are you familiar? I think first let me time out. I think it's great, Derek. You have this notebook and you've been like doing research and did you write these notes just for this conversation or are you writing them to educate yourself as a hunter?
Everything.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, I've kind of, you want to pause it and stop?
No, okay. Tell it. No, tell everybody.
So, kind of my whole thoughts on everything is I'm ignorant to the stuff. No clue. I come from the Midwest. I had 80 acres of private land to hunt on. It was the exact same thing every day. So, I didn't have to worry about public land access because in Missouri, there really wasn't anything close to me. There was like 2 things that were over an hour drive. And back in those days, I was really fat and hiking 2 miles into someplace to go
not your cup of tea.
To then hunt. I was like, yeah, this ain't fucking happening.
So yeah, like Thomas Jefferson National Forest was probably your nearest.
That's
in like the southeast corner by St. Louis.
I'm not sure because, that's on the other side. Man, there was just this little tract of land that was just on the other side of the Kansas and Missouri border on the Missouri side. And it was maybe, I'm going to say 20 acres. I mean, a very small little piece. And they had a trail that went into it and you couldn't start hunting until you reached the end of that trail. They also had a shooting range further up the hill that people could go and shoot at.
And this is all gone now because they built a massive stadium for some red shirt wearing assholes.
No, I believe it's still there. But there just wasn't any access, It was closer to where I lived, but
I'm talking about the Chiefs, by the way,
Yeah.
not Republicans.
Yeah.
So I just want to be clear.
No, but they did build the soccer stadiums and stuff are definitely close out to that area.
Yeah.
But they're on the Kansas side, not Missouri side.
Yeah. Gotcha.
So I was kind of curious on this and, I don't want, Colorado, we have a lot of public land that you can hunt on, you can recreate on.
And there's a lot of rules.
And there are a lot of rules, but you can still go out and use it.
Is it hard to navigate the rules?
So I will say from a hunter standpoint, this is all because, once again, coming from Missouri, I could go to Walmart, say, hey, I need my archery deer tag. That gets me 2 deer tag and 2 turkey tags.
And that's out there?
That's in Missouri.
Okay. Here you need to pay, what is it, a tag? There's like a hunter's fee.
So
some kind of wildlife fee.
So you have a habitat stamp.
That's it.
It's $12. I mean, it's worth it. It helps.
Time out.
All right.
When we put on our race and the hunter's like, did you pay to be here? Oh, fuck yeah, I'm paying to be here. Like, well, I paid to be here in it. And they've often mentioned their habitat stamp.
Yeah, it's $12.
Well, simmer down, Charlie. Come on.
Maybe $12.17. But then it's under $13.
And then how much is your tag?
So, okay, this is where things can get really interesting.
Oh, interesting.
Depending on whether you're in state or out of state.
Okay.
So, I believe my mule deer tag for this year is like $46 for an in-state resident. Out of state, man, I would really need to go to the CPW website.
There's got to be a couple hundred.
But it's a couple $100.
And they're making it more expensive.
So
for out-of-staters.
For elk, an elk tag, I believe, if I remember right, is like $66 for in-state.
Okay.
Out of state, you're looking at almost $1,000 for a tag.
Yeah, okay. So I can see how the Texans are
before you even leave your house to go to Colorado to hunt elk, you're going to spend $1,000.
Okay.
Then you've got all your travel expenses and everything else that go along with that.
Just so the hunters here, I feel you.
I mean,
my permit's pretty expensive too.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you what the amount is.
$673 million.
No, it's not free.
Right.
And I'm paying hundreds and thousands to use that land as well. And I live here. And I'm also doing work to build and maintain the trails that you walk on.
Right. Absolutely.
And most of these guys are paying their thousands. They come in, they use the roads and trails, they hunt, they go home.
Right.
Yeah.
But see, this year, they've changed the rules for out-of-state hunters. So
I saw that.
Out-of-state hunters can no longer just buy their elk tag over the counter. Mm-hmm. They have to go into a draw system and try to get their tags now. And they have changed the GMUs, the game management units that they are allowed to be in now. So before they had all this area that they could go hunt on. Okay. Now it's like, nope, these are for Colorado people. These are going to be for all the non-resident tags that we're going to sell so they can go out there and we're not hopefully kind of cut down on all the out-of-state, guys that come out. And, people want to complain about the price of the tags, but at the same time, you're still paying it. You're still coming out to do it. So either A, quit complaining about it and just pay the damn thing, or quit coming out is the way I look at it. But I'm black and white on the law.
You're going to become real popular real quick.
Oh, yeah, of course. So, that's...
So you have
I've been wanting to educate myself on all this to understand. And, I came across Fresh Tracks by Randy Newberg, and he's got 40 years of experience of fighting for our public lands and everything. And he has a lot of interesting stuff, and I learned a lot on how the money gets allocated, on the government doesn't spend this 80%. They just keep it locked up, and they don't let other people, earmark it for what it's supposed to be used for.
You sent me a YouTube video. I call it Meatcast. Forgive me, guys.
Meat Eater.
Yeah. I actually really love the show.
Steve Rennell is awesome.
I learned a lot. The main host, was that Steve?
Yeah.
What a great show.
Yeah.
I started passively listening while I was doing work and then found myself fully engaged.
Right.
And his co-hosts there in the studio are fabulous. But they had the now forced retired supervisor from White River National Forest here in Colorado on their program.
Right.
And talked about some of those things, that the waste and just the irresponsibility and bloat and there's a lot that our federal government needs to fix about the management of its land.
It's by no means perfect at all.
No,
it definitely needs a lot of help.
And same on the state level.
Right.
So you have this notebook to kind of educate yourself, and you're just taking. I think it's great.
Yeah, I do that when I want to learn stuff. I go through as I'm watching. I pause.
Do you think a lot of hunters do the same thing?
Man, I would really doubt it. Hardcore hunters, yes.
Yeah.
Your average guy, no. He just wants to know how he can get his tag and where he can go hunt.
I was a Boy Scout, so I feel like I have an obligation to.
I made it to Cub Scouts. Or wait, Webelos. Webelos is above Cub Scouts, right?
No, Cub Scouts, Webelos.
Yeah, I didn't make it to Boy Scouts.
And then Boy Scouts. Both my brothers are Eagle Scouts. I didn't make it. Long story.
You're right.
People are going to make their assumptions. Go ahead. I learned long ago you got to leave it better than you found it.
Right.
But how you found it isn't just what it looked like when you got there.
Right.
It's you got to appreciate what it is.
Right.
And so that's why I have a great amount of respect for this notebook that you have. I just wanted to say that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it, because there was so much information that I was coming across, and, it really just kind of seemed like if government just did their damn job, we could probably, but they like to argue too much. They can't get along, so it's...
That's true. I think
it's
we
like,
all
hey,
can
let's
agree
just
on
drag
that.
everything out, and, because we can't get along. I don't want what you want because I have to be the opposite of whatever you are.
It's your show, Derek, but I want to ask you a couple of questions.
All right.
I have two.
Okay.
One is, do you know, so we were talking about how the rules are changing for out-of-state hunters.
Right.
Do you know that process here in Colorado?
I do not, and I'm sure it's a lengthy process in order, I would say from some of the stuff that I've come across, because in 2028, they're making a new revision to how tags are allocated and drawn here in Colorado.
They are.
Because it's going to go and definitely pisses a lot of people off, especially those lifetime people who've been paying for their preference points.
So there's a process.
Right.
Colorado has a Colorado Parks and Wildlife Commission.
I think they even do. I think there's even a YouTube
deal
that broadcasts live all the time.
All their meetings are public.
Right.
I get an email. You could sign up to get the emails before every monthly meeting. A couple weeks out, there's a rulemaking notice.
Right.
And it basically, I can click on that email. I click on the link, and it tells me this is the rules and change to the rules that the commission will be considering at this next meeting. Public open meeting. They're talking about the rules, the changes that they want to make. They might have a committee that meets on the way to that public meeting that discusses the writing and the framework of the rule, and they just did this for events like mine, for trail runners. I actually reached out to them and told the commission, hey, I'm a race director. I put on events in multiple state parks. Here's what I'm experiencing. And I think it'd be really great if the commission can go back and review the process for how these permits are given out and the fee structure.
Right.
It just something seems off.
Right.
Well, come to find out, they hadn't reviewed it or looked at it since 1996. Well, nobody pointed it out.
Right, yeah.
So I got to follow that whole process. I got a phone call. I got to have a voice. They listened to my opinion respectfully. They didn't accept my every recommendation, of course. This is what I think we need to have. This is what I think we need to do. This is what I think is responsible. This is what I think is fair. And 75-80% of what I suggested was written into the rules.
Nice.
But now I continue to follow. This month's meeting, there's a rulemaking notice for some of this stuff. And there's ways for you to make public comment.
Okay.
There's ways for you to be a speaker at the meeting.
Right.
Or online, Zoom into the meeting.
Right.
Like, it's not like you guys are shut out.
Right.
Like, there are, the public open meeting laws and public meeting laws and stuff like that. And there is a process that you can and should engage with.
Right.
And I guess that's what I'm saying. And you can learn all about it on the CPW website.
Right.
So
Okay.
It's not like all these rule changes are being made in a vacuum.
Right. No, absolutely. Absolutely.
There is an opportunity.
I know it's not like, hey, they just decide one day that that's what they're going to do. I know they run through all their studies and everything else that they got to figure out.
They're doing their due diligence.
I know it takes more than, a couple months.
And what they do will never make everybody happy.
Right.
So my second question.
Okay.
Do you think the public should be voting on fucking wildlife decisions?
No.
I don't either.
No. And
so, like the last election we had, it was mountain lion and lynx, like banning
they could all fuck off on cutting that out.
banning the hunting of cats or whatever it was, and I voted no,
Right.
because specifically, the public shouldn't be deciding this. We should be letting the habitat experts doing their job that we hired them to do.
Isn't that what happened with the wolves?
Correct. And that's a great example of why I don't think we should be. I think that's a complete and totally effed up entire situation.
So, hey, I'm all for wildlife. I think wolves are cool as shit, but they shouldn't have been reintroduced. And here's why I say that. And it's because I've listened to some guys talk about this, and people that, are advocates for them. Well, it takes the land back to the way it was. No, it doesn't. We've already come in and destroyed the land ever going back.
I don't know if you guys have realized, but the way it looks around here in the Front Range, it's not campfires and teepees like it was.
And wolves are very efficient hunters.
Yeah.
And got rid of them because they were destroying all the populations of the elk and moose and everything else.
I really think it's a very irresponsible decision. I think that the idea that CPW was going to be able to manage this appropriately, I think that was a very farcical point of view from the get-go. I think they're doing their best, though. they are following the will of the people. I think it's a shame that these the commission members are being threatened and just again
Like it was their decision.
complete right. And their defense has continuously been, we're just doing what the people voted for us to do. And time out, like, yeah.
Right.
And by the way, the people shouldn't have been voting on that to begin with. Like, seriously, I'm the last person that should have a decision on what happens to wolves,
Right.
mountain lions,
Grizzly bears.
right.
Right.
No, that's not for me. That's
It should be left to the wildlife biologists
Correct.
to understand all the
Okay.
goes involved with it.
I'm glad we can agree on that.
Oh, that's good.
Highlights a point, though, again, that there's a lot of crossover here. I'm like, for trail runners,
Right.
I have seen no guidance come down from CPW or anything published on what the public should do if they are face to face with a wolf on public lands.
Right.
And given the sheer amount of our population here in Colorado that uses these public lands and are constantly in these lands where the wolves are,
Right.
that to me is a tremendous oversight.
Right.
I think that, I hope that's the right,
Probably,
or lack of
you know.
oversight. I don't know. Like,
I'm just a dumb kid from the Midwest. So.
I'm a risk management guy, right?
Right.
So I just feel like, all right, well, if you're going to introduce these animals and then still allow the public to go there, you should probably have some guidance for people on what they should do if they interact with a.
They kind of have them for
wolf.
mountain lions, right? Or no? I mean, if you go to the
Oh,
website,
those
probably
are
not.
two completely different fucking animals in my world.
Well, yeah, a mountain lion's going to stalk you. You'll never know he's there, and he's going to eat you and be done with you.
Oh, yeah, but
the wolf's going to pack up on you.
It's a way bigger.
But, you know, that's the thing, though. People think that animals want shit to do with them.
No, they
Animals
don't want
don't.
nothing to do
They
with
want
us.
nothing to do with you. Most likely,
But can wolves get rabies?
probably. They're a dog, right?
What if I see a rabid wolf?
Well,
Is it
there
like
you
a
go.
rabid raccoon?
But see, here's the thing, though. Because of how things have been done with this whole wolf situation, is it's set up to where we can't manage them.
right.
So now you've taken the control out of them being managed in any kind of way. Now, if I remember right, we got the wolves from Canada because, is it Utah and Wyoming? There was two other states, I think, that reintroduced wolves, and they've had such a big problem with it that they would not give any of the wolves to Colorado. So
that's-
Colorado had to get theirs
From Oregon.
so you know which ones it were?
Yeah, we're coming. Ours are coming from Oregon. I think there's Canada too.
Well, the last introduction was all Canada.
Yeah, and Canada has now said, no, we're not giving you any more.
They want to charge us a tariff on it.
Tariff on wolves. That'd be something.
Right?
What is that? 200% for wolves.
Right.
What about the penguins? All right, I just wanted to ask you those questions
Yeah.
because
So, I mean, we get along on, you know.
hunters would say the same thing, that the general public really should not be making any decisions on wildlife.
No. There should be no
And-
ballot box biology.
And as I would say, you're absolutely right.
Right.
I am not an ecologist or a biologist.
Right. Yeah, sure. I want to see wolves in the wild,
Cool.
but I shouldn't be allowed to vote on it to say, yes, we should have wolves in. It just.
It sounds cool to me.
Right.
And
Until
it
you come
look,
face to face with one.
and it looks like it sounded cool for an awful lot of other people too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But the general public's not thinking about, because we're not biologists, because we're not ecologists. Yeah, we're not thinking about what does that mean really.
We've just been sold this idea that it's going to take the land back to the way that it was.
And I don't have time to read a dissertation or like here. I actually have some time to read reports.
Right.
This is I don't know how many pages it is, but it's a research paper I'm going to read. Most people are not. They're only like going to read a research paper on the importance of wolves being reintroduced,
Right.
and then also read the paper
that
against.
the biologist put out.
Yeah,
Right.
Like
yeah.
so we're just voting blindly with our heart.
We're voting for an idea of what we're being sold. I mean,
Romantic,
that's- right?
man. It's romanticism.
Oh, yes, wolves.
That's called rhetoric, I believe.
You know, when I got the chance to go with a buddy back in November to tag along on his elk hunt. One of the places that we went to go, there was a sign up that said, something about pup wolves were in the area. And I thought that was cool. I was like, man, are we going to get to see some wolves? But dude, there were so many hunters in that area. I mean, there's no way there was a wolf anywhere in that area, because just from where we were standing, I could look through my binoculars, 200s, 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 the entire way. And then you'd be like, oh, there's a truck full of them over there.
Yeah.
So there were no wolves back in there. They had taken off and hid because they don't want anything to do with people. I mean, yeah, sure, you see some people catch.
Well, trail runners are the same, man. Like, as a race director, every race.
Right.
Should I be wearing a bear bell while I'm running in your race? No. Man, they don't fucking care about you at all.
So let's think about this for just a second. The whole bear bell.
What do I do if
right?
I see a mountain lion? I've lived here 11 years. I've actually seen 3 or 4 mountain lions.
But didn't you tell me it's only when you're like driving out of a place?
Yeah, like
right.
Come on.
Right.
Okay.
So the whole bear bell thing and idea. Now, hunters, do you think hunters are loud when they're going through the forest?
Just on foot?
Yeah.
Generally, no.
Right. They're trying to be as quiet as possible. Yeah. They don't want to spook any animals or anything like that. I
wouldn't say they're tiptoeing, but they're being deliberate of their travel.
Most of them are.
Yeah.
So, how many hunters do you think have probably been murdered by just random wildlife while they're out wandering around in the woods?
This is a great question. A handful, maybe? Maybe?
Right. I have no idea. I haven't looked it up because it's not something you hear about.
Right.
The only time you hear about something is typically it's a trail runner.
In the spring.
Right. And there's mountain lions involved.
Mama and baby.
Right. I
hear stories about, I got chased by a bear and no, you didn't.
Right. A black bear will charge you most likely and just a bluff, but
yeah. I've been charged by moose plenty of times.
The black bear that I've come across, I was 30 feet away and it saw me. I was like, oh yeah, never mind. And it beelined straight up the side of the mountain. Yeah, it was like, no, I want nothing to do with you.
Yeah. Moose scare me the most.
Yeah, I would say so.
They're just big and stupid.
Yeah, they just get that dumb look in their eyes, especially during the rut.
Super protective.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. How does federal versus state management debate play into the issue?
So I think the big thing right now is that I've told this story before on my podcast, but for your listeners, in 2023, the Forest Service basically put out a new rule proposal. So it was a public announcement. We're looking for public comment on this thing we want to do, and that is to change their structure for collecting fees, cost recovery for permitting events like mine.
Right.
Or permitting other things, or doing work that they need to do. Guides, outfitters, mostly guides and outfitting included in this. And by the way, if you're a hunter out there that owns like a hunting business, like an outfitter business, read the Explore Act. Okay. Read it. There's a lot in there, specifically the SOAR Act aspect that is part and parcel of the Explore Act.
Okay.
Just would benefit people. I just will throw that out there. It would benefit people a lot. I actually helped write some of the language in the SOAR Act.
Right on.
So anyway, new cost recovery proposal. We're not being funded appropriately. Like, Congress hasn't given us enough money to do this stuff. So
we need some of the stuff that I've come across where 80% of it isn't being used and earmarked for what it's supposed to be.
Right. But they're just like, so we need more money.
Right.
We need to figure this out. So we're going to increase how we collect fees and how that's structured. And for me, my permit for my events would go up 400%.
Right.
So of course we all push back.
So it's only $4 then, right?
So we all push back and we're like, no, come on guys. Like, you could be more responsible than this. That's not how this is going to work. They went quiet for a little bit. And then last year, fall of 2024, no solution came about. They used all the money that was given to them in the Reinvesting in America After COVID Act that Biden passed. And they used it by hiring more permanent employees. Money's gone, so we're gonna have to lay off all of our temporary staff. And this is where I get like, this is where it starts to get crazy for me.
Right.
So the Forest Service already determined we're going to need to not hire back our seasonal staff next year. So those of you who get permits from us, you're probably not going to get the permits because these are the people that give you the permit and administer and oversee your permit. Now they're going to be gone. And the people who are here, the full-time people, they're going to have to pick up some of the more important work that seasonal temporary yearly staff would do. They're going to be doing that now instead.
Right.
So their workload just got bigger. So we're going to...
With no more pay.
Right. Exactly. So we're not rehiring these folks. We have a hiring freeze. A lot of these ranger districts here in Colorado put a moratorium on the permitting of events like mines, or like no new permits. Some of you are going to lose your permit. And here I am, like, sounding the alarm. And then the Trump administration comes in and they lay off temporary staff.
Right.
And I'm one of those people that's like, yeah, it's outrageous. And it's unfortunate. I know some of the people that got laid off. I feel for them. I'm sad for them. But my guys, like, we were doing that in September.
Right.
We did that in September and October. Under that blue administration, it's now just because of who it is in charge, and it's the red industry that we're all of a sudden like major alarm bells, right? So again, forest to the trees, we were already doing it. We're just doing more of it now.
Right.
And it is incredibly detrimental to the forest. I don't agree with the policy. I didn't agree with it in the fall.
Right.
But, so I just want to say, we need to be real for a minute. This was already happening. It's just that even more people, it wasn't just, I think the difference is in the fall, we're not hiring our temporary staff back.
Right.
And then come January and we're going to fire even more temporary part-time staff.
Right.
And we're going to fire some folks that do some really important things that we don't think is important. So they're gone. Like, let's be fucking real here. Like, this isn't new.
Right.
It's been happening. This has been brewing for a while as far as lands go.
Right.
But then all the funding gets slashed. And yeah, man, like here in the state of Colorado, a lot of what Colorado Parks and Wildlife does depends on funding from our federal government. From a variety of revenue sources. It's coming from a lot of buckets.
Right.
Some of it's grants. Those grants are gone. We haven't seen or really realized the full effect of that money not coming just yet.
Right.
I think when hunting season rolls around, I actually think that's when that is going to be the moment where we see what's up or not what's up. But in the meantime, we don't know.
Right.
We are theorizing.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
We're making assumptions.
Yeah.
So it makes our state wildlife managers for lack of a better term, wildly inefficient.
Right.
They've lost their funding. They now don't have the funding to employ their staff to complete their projects. Our federal land managers don't have the funding to complete NEPA studies, to continue projects that have been in the works and on the books for many years. It takes a while.
Right.
For trailhead improvements to be approved and actually started, it's like a 5-year process.
Right.
So like we're here and we're ready to do the work, but we don't have that funding and we don't have the people.
Right.
So I'd say that where the federal, and state, to me, they're one and the same.
Right.
What's going on with the Fed very much affects the state. And our leaders at the Department of Natural Resources here with CPW, they've sounded that alarm that we're in trouble.
Right.
Like this is not.
So
good.
let me ask this, and I've done a little bit of volunteering in the last couple of years, and with all these people being laid off, do you think there could be a huge influx of volunteers to help out, would be able to help in any kind of way? You know, I know there's like trail work, and there's all kinds of different things that can be done to help out on the lands, but is that even something that's feasible?
Yeah, man. Actually, it is. So for us, I very much view the use of public lands a privilege and not a right.
Okay.
I go through the process. I get my permits. I pay the bill. Just because I'm charged a fee and pay it doesn't give me a right to anything.
Right.
Like I've been afforded the privilege
To use the land.
to pay to play.
Right.
And so I've made it a priority at my business that we've got to do trail work.
Right.
And we do trail work, and a lot of my advocacy efforts are focused on trail work and trailhead enhancements and stuff. And we're doing actual sweat equity. And I asked my federal partners, so is it best for us to do trail work this year? Or should we be helping you patrol campgrounds?
Clean toilets.
Clean toilet, yeah.
Right.
Empty trash, clean toilets, make sure fires are out, cleaning fire rings. Where is our efforts going to be best served? And the answer is, please keep doing your trail work.
Okay.
That project needs to keep moving forward. It needs to be completed. But it's on the table that we help
Right.
with the toilets and
Right.
empty garbage and
As needed.
yeah, and patrol. I think that everybody should mobilize themselves as a willing advocate and volunteer for our public lands at this time. So if there is a fire ban and you see someone driving into the woods with a bundle of wood on their car,
Right.
say something.
Right.
That doesn't mean get into a fist fight or
Right.
show each other your
Most likely,
six shooter and shit.
Hopefully the person's cool, but I do read different comments about somebody saying something to somebody going, "Hey man, you can't have a fire," and the person going, "Fuck you."
But some people don't know where to find the information on what the current fire regulations are.
Right.
Or what a stage 1 fire ban versus stage 2, stage 3 means.
Right.
Like people are just uneducated. They don't know. They just want to go to the woods and
Right.
camp out and have
Absolutely.
a great time. So it doesn't mean like go let's patrol the woods and give people an education. I mean, it's more like no, really, we all need to kind of come together and help our land managers
Right.
manage responsible use.
Right. And see, I've kind of been thinking about, doing, I've done some trail work, looking to do some more this year. I'm thinking about even, volunteering with the CPW and the Forest Service and stuff, trying to see, help out wherever I can, because we need it. We really do. I mean, because once the land's gone, it's gone.
In New Hampshire, there's an awful lot of
New Hampshire.
in New Hampshire, for damn sure. Yeah. There's a lot of pack it in, pack it out policy
Right.
in the national forest. And I've always been surprised like how little of that there is here.
Right.
What if for this summer, everything is pack in, pack out, no fires? I actually think that's what it should be.
I would say, as a person who enjoys the woods by themselves, that would be perfect, because that would probably weed out a whole bunch of people who'd be like, yeah, nah, never mind, not going. But at the same time, that could affect funding, though, for those lands, because if those people can't come out here, they're not buying, whatever permit they may need or something, right? That is money back into.
Well, here in Colorado, there's not too many. Most camping is dispersed. Like
Really?
there's only a few rec areas that you camp in. Like,
See, and that's one of those things that's been kind of confusing to me to understand, is the whole dispersed camping. Like when I'm driving along and I see a car on the side of the road, to me, they look like they're camping. Maybe they're homeless. I don't know. But they look like they're probably camping. And I'm like, oh, you just any road along the way.
we could do a whole episode on that.
And maybe we should.
It's dispersed use and the rules around how long you can be in a specific location.
Right.
It's like 14 days and you got to move and
I think it's like 14 days in Well,
No,
there's certain places that are, it's like 14 days in any 28-day period. And then there's it's only 14 days in the entire year.
Well, you got to move. And then there's like a law about how far away you need to move from that spot.
Right.
So it's like, oh yeah, I moved my truck. No, like you got to move.
Right.
Yeah, man, that's a whole can of worms.
Right. Yeah. All right. Who stands to gain financially from the sale of public lands?
Dude, I want to believe it would be the American people.
Right.
So I'll swing back to like the start of our conversation.
Okay.
I asked you, like, do you think we should be more independent with oil and gas? And we should probably have some precious metals. I'd like to believe like there's somewhere in what's going on, there's this view that like there's no reason why we can't be as rich as Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And Dubai, and like build like shit like Dubai and Qatar and like,
right.
What things look like out there. Like,
right.
Man, Fantasyland, wouldn't that be cool?
Right.
No, like really what they've built in the desert.
Yeah, well, like, yeah, I mean, they've created
streets of gold, man.
I mean, they just drop here. Oh, no, we're going to build over here. We'll just put a bunch of sand down and we'll just build right here.
Buy like a $2,000 pizza with gold as a topping and shit, right? I think that's a very like perverted and unrealistic view of what we could become.
Right.
But I'd like to believe that that's the view. We could become like them.
Right.
And we should. And so America would be rich. I think that's what we're being sold.
Yeah. I think that's what we're being sold. So what do you think's actually happening?
Of course the man makes the money, man. That's like Exxon, BP, whoever, like
all the rich people.
Yeah, man.
Just
like the people that
richer.
already have it. Like,
right.
Yeah, like the rich get richer.
Right.
I think it's all being set up, honestly, so that this is my personal belief. And man, I admit, like, it could be out there, but I really think it, like, all of this that's happening, it's deliberately being set up to fail.
Okay.
Like, for instance, defunding the forests, logging, making a mess of the forest, irresponsible management of the forest, forcing people who work in managing the forest out, laying them off, firing them, not funding them. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, man, there's a lot of forest. We can't manage it properly, so we really should sell it. And now all of a sudden, who are we selling it to? Oh, I got a friend over here. He owns a bunch of hotels, and he'd really love to have it.
Right.
All right, I got this guy over here. He builds homes, and
not affordable.
He'd really love to have it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, that swath there that we just completely clear cut looks like shit. We didn't clean the floors. I got a friend over here who'd love to drill there for precious metals, gems or oil and gas or whatever, right. Just some fracking, like whatever. I just got a friend. He could take care of it. And it becomes like, well, since we can't and we've ruined it, it's worthless to us. So yeah, let's sell it to him on the cheap.
Right.
And I think that's the goal with a lot of things. Right. And I think it really is an attempt to centralize power to one specific group of people.
Right.
And I'm one of those people that believes at some point here this year, there will be martial law declared in our country.
You think so?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Be interesting.
Yeah. Oh, we can't look at the civil unrest. They can't control themselves. We've pissed them off so much. And they're at each other's throats so violently that we have no choice but to send the military in. So,
right. And
then suddenly there's an even bigger transfer of power to one very specific group of people.
Right.
I think about it a lot, and yeah, man, I actually kind of believe I think that's the end goal.
Right. Okay. That's.
I hope I'm wrong.
Right.
I'd love to be
absolutely.
Wrong. Yeah.
I've heard, affordable housing is one reason they want to, to create it. I'm all for it. If
That's a romantic.
That's it. But I think they're truly, from listening to, like I said, Randy Newberg on this Fresh Tracks, and it really feels like they want to get the land into the state's hands because the state land boards are excellent at selling off property and making money for their schools.
You know, Derek, I'm actually not opposed to more federal land entering the hands of my state.
Yeah.
Period.
Okay.
Hoping that it stays there for the people, not necessarily sell off or development.
Now, I will say something that he's talked about, and he's talked about these other states and them having small tracts of land that they could already do that with, but they're not because they're like, oh, well, we don't have enough land. We need that 28 million acres of federal land before we could even think about trying to do that. To me, it just seems like, hey, we're just trying to pull the wool over your eyes. We get the land, then we turn around and we sell it off, and now you no longer have access to that. I mean, it's a real threat.
It's possible.
I mean, so it's...
I wouldn't be opposed to my state managing more land in Colorado.
Provided you could have access to it. Or would you be willing to give up access?
Let me tell you. At some point, look up the Rabbit Ears Pass mountain bike project.
That was one that they brought up and it was talking about that.
Oh, I saw a news article. I didn't even really equate that to... What is it?
Oh, yeah.
What's the name of that show? Meatcast? Is that what
Meat Eater?
Sorry, guys. Meatcast.
Meat Eater.
Yeah, like project to build 71 miles of brand new trail, multiple new trailheads on Forest Service land up near Rabbit Ears Pass in Route National Forest, Steamboat, Colorado area. And conversations going on for years between the Forest Service, conservation groups, mountain bikers, hunters, because of the elk herd that is in that area. And the big issue that it got hung up on was needing to do appropriate measures and an appropriate environmental study on how the project will ultimately affect the elk.
So the NEPA study.
Yeah. And that's when CPW gets involved.
Right.
Because it's the state's elk. Federal land, the state's elk. In the state of Colorado, I don't totally understand the weaving of federal, but at any rate, Forest Service just completely was just like, yeah, we're going to downgrade this project to 49 miles of trail instead of 71 so that they no longer need to do the environmental study. And now the hunters and CPW are like, the fuck?
Right.
You know, it's just and from an outsider looking in on that project, I actually side with the hunters and CPW on this one for sure. Like, no, like you committed to this project for many, many years. You came to, this is what the project is. Now we need to do the NEPA.
Right.
And they're playing semantics, it seems like, to be able to back out of that.
And see, so you talk about them skipping all these plans and stuff. And I came across this thing, and I can't remember what state it is, but they're calling it Freedom Cities.
Oh, tell me more.
And so basically, it's one of these deals where they're trying to fast track and sidestep all of the NEPA studies and all the different studies to rush and build a city, is how I'm understanding it. So...
that tracks.
You'd have to sit down and look it up. I was listening to a podcast, going through it, listening to it, talking about these freedom cities, and it was just one of the issues that they brought up on, and I thought it was kind of interesting. I was like, oh, well, we'll just bypass all this stuff and we'll just fast track these little cities that are within a certain amount of area on BLM or wherever they're wanting to do it and stuff. So I thought it was really interesting on this whole freedom cities. I didn't dig into it any further or anything like that.
I have to look into that. Yeah,
it was definitely kind of wild. Why do you think more people aren't aware of the issue?
What issue?
Of the whole public land being sold off.
Oh, dude, how am I buying groceries? People don't like
they're
really,
oblivious, right?
I
mean, even our own user groups probably.
The sheer, I could talk to you about it from a trail runner perspective. You and I have talked about this in text.
Right.
I think we're at a moment in time right now where there's just so much that we could be digging into and thinking about. And there's so many things that we could be educating ourselves on. It's overwhelming.
Right.
It's overwhelming to hear all the people sounding the alarm. I'm one of the people that, like, I'm sounding the alarm to my user group, and I have been for years about a number of things. And I've sounded the alarm loud enough and long enough that my voice, I feel, is no longer effective.
Right.
But I'm also seeing there's nobody else willing to pick up the torch. And so as I see the things I've been talking about for 2 decades,
right,
coming to fruition, all the things I said that were going to happen are happening, guys.
Right.
You know, like, and it's not an I told you so thing. It's more of a, okay, we're here. Now what are we going to do?
Right.
Nothing. I feel like trail runners in general, like when I look at, Colorado, I think we are like 3rd or 4th most ultra marathons in the nation, which is any trail race longer than a marathon in distance. So usually 31 miles or longer.
Right.
And now we're up to like 300 miles.
They do that in a day?
Yeah. Like, so, 3rd or 4th most populous for a number of those events.
Right.
Man, I am hard pressed to tell you more than 5 or 6 organizations that put on those events that do any advocacy or do trail work.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Years ago, maybe a decade ago now, a lot of the 100-mile races started adding a rule. If you want to run our 100-mile race, you got to do 8 hours of volunteer work. And some races are like, you could do that trail work with any other ultra or trail race, 8 hours with them, support their event.
Right.
That satisfies the requirement. But most of the races, you got to do 8 hours of trail work. And a lot of these runners were just like, oh, are you kidding me? I don't have time. I don't have time to do that.
Right.
I got to train. I got my family. I'm already giving up time with them. Like, and I'm sitting here like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you're really gonna like come up with reasons why
you can't take 8 hours of your day?
That's a stretch too far. So then, that's a requirement at some of our races.
Right.
It's either a race or trail work. If you do trail work with us, I give you a free race entry. And then there's the other. You could start buying out of it, or you could pay $200 to this nonprofit we support. And it's like, one of ours is like the local rec center,
right,
in a small mountain town. You could pay $200 and I'll give it to them and we're good.
I bet that's probably the higher option, isn't it?
Absolutely. More people do the buyout.
That's crazy to me.
So I'm also like one of the few race directors in our sport paying attention to this stuff. We have another nonprofit called Runners for Public Lands. Mm-hmm. They're trying to get the word out. They're trying to get race directors to sign on to letters that they're writing to legislators who would introduce bills and have introduced bills and such, right. Which is great. But then I'm not seeing any of those race directors that signed the letter talking to their community about it. Hey, I just signed this letter. This is why it's important. We need your help.
Right.
And I think it's because the general sentiment among race directors is, my runners don't fucking care about that. They just want to pay the ticket to get on the ride, which is the race. They come to the race, you ride the ride. Great day at the fair. I'm going home.
So what happens when they cancel the rides? Where do they go then? They all go to the city to run, right? That's because that's all that you got left.
This is going to be another one of those things in 5 to 10 years where I'm not going to say I told you so, but the things I've been talking about that you didn't want to listen to, that's where we ended up.
Right.
And I'm in a place right now where I'm starting to figure out my 5-year plan to get out of this profession.
Right.
Because the writing for me is on the wall. Like, we're done.
Right.
Like, this is not
It's going to be more and more difficult to get permits
absolutely
and all that. Yeah.
And this is going the wrong way, and we're becoming more negligent, and we're just not doing enough work, and it's all going to come to a head, and I'm going to be like checking out. Next thing. See you guys.
So could it all be turned around if all of your race directors decide to pull their head out of their ass and help out?
I do. I think it's more than just, like, I don't think I was fair. Runners for Public Land, they're doing their best. They're doing what they think is the right thing to do, and that's to write our legislators, demand that our public lands be refunded, demand that those who are illegally laid off be reinstated, and also they need more funding and they need more staff.
Right.
And we're like writing letters to demand those things, and we should be doing that on some level. But again, like all these race directors that are signing on, and there's a lot who are not, which blows my mind. There's a lot of the number one revenue generating trail race director, one of the largest revenue generating race director in our country who relies specifically on public lands for their events, did not sign that letter.
I could probably guess it.
But that says a lot.
Right.
So at any rate, it's great. We're making these demands, but I also don't think now is the time to be. We can make demands of our congressional leaders, but what are we doing to support the districts?
Right.
What are we
doing?
doing?
People who are already here on the ground.
Yeah.
Not the.
And I'll tell you what we're doing. We're creating new races. We're approaching them for new permits. Our races are getting longer now. I'd like to have a 300-mile race instead. And it's going to last a week.
Right.
Can you give me a permit? And by the way, you have to oversee that. Like, what the? Seriously, what the F, right? So I think that we really need race directors. Don't just sign a letter.
Right.
You need to talk to your community. And you need to get your community together and go to those districts that you have a race in. And
how can I help?
How can I help? We're here. What can we do this summer? What can we do in the off season? And it's like, hey man, I don't know how to write a grant.
I thought there's no off season at HPRS.
There isn't. I don't know how to write a bill. I don't know how to what can we do on the ground?
Right.
Not what can we, I don't want to sign a letter. I want to actually do something. What can we do? And we're just not doing that.
Right.
And I've got 5 trail work days on my calendar for this year. I advertise them. They're in our newsletter.
Right.
2 of those 5 days, I have 0 people signed up for.
Wow. Just be me and you, huh?
My newsletter goes out to 6,000 runners every month.
Wow.
And the ones that I do have people signed up for, it's 7 people.
Is it typically the same people? Or
there's 1 or 2 people I see almost every time.
Okay.
But we have some new people that cycle through.
Yeah.
We have people that come out every other year or whatever.
But are those people that do come out, or the majority of them doing it so they're getting their requirement for a race? Because I know you have to have it for the 100-miler at Silver Heels.
I have a very small number. I think a lot of them genuinely want to give back.
Come out, yeah. I mean, that's why I do it.
But they want to learn.
Right, yeah.
How do I build a trail? What does this take?
And guys like me.
People are genuine. I think some folks they show up and they want the free entry, but then they do the work and they're like, I'm good. You keep that.
Right.
I needed to do that. And I think that's great.
Right.
I think that's the opportunities that we need and we need to seize on.
Right.
Is that type of stuff,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
We are not doing enough though, man. We're seriously screwed.
Right. Yeah, I mean, when you have agencies that are underfunded and they can't have the people out there on their own to do it, I mean, you have to have volunteers to pick it up. And I mean, you need it for the races in general because you don't have a staff.
Well, no, Derek, it's my right to use that public land for my races. So I demand they give me a permit.
Right. I'm sure that goes over like a third and punch
and
bowl.
That is not at all what I think, by the way. That was total sarcasm.
What role do you think social media plays in raising awareness? I mean, could we be posting more. I mean, I have like 2 friends on my social medias. I mean,
That's it.
well, there may be a couple more, but I mean, nobody. I don't pay attention to social media all that much anymore, other than just silly videos. But I'm a YouTube kind of guy.
I could tell you, like, in the trail runner space right now, we're having like online social media arguments about race directors. We're talking about people. We're talking
stupid shit.
We're talking shit about people.
Waste of time.
I don't like that person. I don't like how they talk. I don't like their word choice. I don't like their attitude. I don't like the way they direct a race. I don't like the way they treat frogs. I don't like, just, and we're talking about like races that ran out of food and water. And we're talking about races that, I mean, these are important things to talk about.
Right.
Yeah. Like when you go to a race, you want to run a trail race that's well supported. The race director understands that under no circumstances should you ever run out of food and water. That is like your job to the runner. That's like the number 2 job.
Right.
Second most important thing of the day. I would say it's more important than making sure they're wearing a bib. So they got food and water to survive. That's what we're providing, this supported mountain shit.
Right.
So you got to support it. So if somebody's not doing that, yeah, we should have that conversation, to be fair. But like, we're sharing memes that make fun of our elites.
Right.
We're sharing memes that make fun of the gear we wear or the shoes. And we're arguing over, is the Boston Marathon elitist or not? And we're arguing about Camille Herron's behavior. And we're arguing over just all kinds of shit that really, at the end of the day, does not fucking matter.
Right. It doesn't change a damn thing.
No. And the things that we absolutely need to be talking about and should be talking about and making a priority to talk about to save our sport, to improve our reputation with our land managers, to be advocates, to give back, to make sure it's there for the new races or the next race, to do the respectful things and the due diligence. For me, I was like, I got to do what's right by my other race directors who are my neighbors, or some would say competition.
Right.
I can't mess it up for them. We're not talking about those things. So on social media, like, I think that's and maybe hunters too. I know this is mostly a hunter. Forgive me.
Right. No, you're all good.
I've said a few times on this show, like there's a lot of hunters out there that aren't doing you guys any favors.
Right. Absolutely.
So maybe there should be more social media posts about what it is to be a responsible hunter, what it is to be responsible to your user group,
right? What
it is to be a good steward, a good advocate, a good partner of and for your user group.
Right.
And I'm not searching socials for that type of thing,
right,
Derek.
Right.
Is that out there or there's need to be more of it?
Typically most of the stuff that I see is just people being negative. I mean, that's
all whatever, like, can you believe they introduced wolves?
Yeah, I can't believe how stupid Colorado governor wildlife. I mean, they blame anybody and everybody.
We still
they can
bitching
blame.
About the wolves?
Oh, dude,
it happened. They voted. It was passed. It was signed. The wolves are here. They're doing the job they're supposed to be doing. Bitching about it doesn't change a thing.
And that's what they're doing. They're continuously blaming, like CPW, like it was their decision to do it and everything. And it's amusing. And I would agree with you. We need to do better stuff on social media and get away from all this.
It's the most
clickbait crap.
It is the most amazing tool that we've ever had at our disposal to mobilize
and spread our word.
Right. And we abuse it pervertedly and just are we're just using it for memes, man. Like we're not we're just like,
I mean, that's the only reason I'm on Instagram is to look at memes. That's it.
This week, and I'm guilty as charged. This week it's check out the action figure of me that AI generated.
I've been seeing
Right?
those go around.
Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
that's what we're using social media for.
You've got your action figure now, don't you?
We're not, I do. I shipped it from China.
That's
I
funny.
paid a 300% tariff. Yeah, but like, seriously, like, we have this, the most amazing tool we've ever had that could help us mobilize and talk about the things that
Matter.
and not just like complaining about those things and angrily stating our positions, which is what we're doing. We're not offering any solutions.
Right.
There is no, like, if I saw you bitching about wolves, all right, Derek, so great, we know how you feel about, now what are you going to do about it?
Right.
What do we do about it? What's your solution? Oh, I don't know. It's not my job. I don't have one. Right?
Right. Absolutely.
No, but really, like, as a citizen who is part owner of that land on some level, you absolutely do have an opportunity to have a say.
Right.
I am the son of a factory worker who made cardboard and later Velcro. My grandfather was a Pennsylvania coal miner. First generation of my family to get a college degree. I am not the smartest dude. I have a degree in TV production and another degree in outdoor ed. I got a degree in backpacking, dude. Right? Like,
lucky bastard.
Everything that I know and I've shared, I took a vested interest to self-teach and get involved and to learn and to figure out. And yeah, man, I am the bull in the china closet. Sometimes it's just like rummaging around, like knocking all the china off the shelf and pissing people off. And I don't know any better. Sometimes I'm just being an asshole. I know it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, like, no, like, I educated myself and I got involved.
Right. You don't want to lose the land.
And if I can do that, literally anybody could do that.
Right.
And I feel like if your livelihood depends on the use of that land, you really should do that.
Right. Absolutely.
And we should be using social media like race directors. We should not just be
tearing each other down. Yeah.
And guilty as charged too, but not just, right now, as a lot of race directors are using AI to generate really cool posters to advertise their race or something. Right? It's just like,
good story, bro.
Dude, like, we got some serious conversations we need to be having.
But your poster looks great.
But at the same time, you don't want to be the messenger because you get attacked for that too. And so I understand that as well. When you have a voice, when you put yourself out there, people are, listen to this fucking guy talking again. You know?
Right. Right. So, I mean, we definitely need to get out there. We need to get involved. And one of the best ways is just to get out there and volunteer, right?
I think so.
I mean, I would think that's the easiest. Go to a website, look for
there's thousands
volunteer and
find a nonprofit.
Right.
What are you guys doing? Oh, that sounds cool. How can I help?
Right. I mean, I look at it this way too. Like a lot of the hunters that bitch and complain about whatever CPW is doing, why don't you volunteer? Why don't you go and do some work with them?
By the way, this doesn't mean grab your chainsaw and just like wander into the forest. Like, I want to cut all the blowdowns. Like,
I'll sweep the forest.
Yeah, like they do need help with that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, man, there's rules.
Right.
Like,
yeah, absolutely.
And
you should go through a website. You should go through an agency, whatever it may be. Yeah.
Absolutely.
What does public land mean to you personally?
Oh. I still go back to John Muir and Gifford Pinchot. It's land that was set aside to be preserved and conserved for my children and my children's children. It was paid for with my tax money. I am, in some way, a part owner of that land, and so are you.
Right. And the rest of the population.
Yeah. And that land, by definition, is public, but that doesn't mean it's a free-for-all.
Right.
And yeah, we need to be responsible with it and for it for our kids and our kids' kids.
Right.
Yeah.
So I want to say, you did say that you were having some experience losing land access, correct? Like, wasn't that, or?
Yeah, around Colorado, yeah, I used to have races in certain counties.
Yeah.
But because of the increased use of their county lands by the population of just here in the Front Range,
Right.
like the number of people that have swarmed to the trails and used their parks, it can no longer support events like mine. So we got pushed out. Now there's like no events on their lands. There's a lot of Forest Service districts, again, around the state here in Colorado that have said, no new events. We're not even going to entertain your email. Some of the events that exist, trying to get their permit, they're not getting a response. And that's around the country.
Right.
I'm really lucky. I've got all my permits for this year already, just about. I think I'm waiting on one more, but I'm in constant contact with employees at the federal government. They're still there. They're working hard. I don't know why I have some of my permits in hand earlier than I ever have, and I mean months in advance.
Wow.
But I'm grateful. I'm thankful for their work. I'm glad they're there. But again, I kind of like forest to the trees. I saw the writing on the wall,
Right.
and we were going to come to this point. So I actually personally decided we need to remove some of our races from public land and put them on private land.
Right.
And so, yeah, there's a few.
Because that'd be a big hit for you if you were to lose
big time
federal land access, correct?
I'd probably lose my job. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I created this job for me, but
It'd be top ramen.
yeah,
and water.
I make a lot less than I currently make, which isn't
right.
anything to celebrate to begin with.
Right.
But yeah, man, just like, man, I could see this coming in. Just moved our events off of federal land,
Right.
decreased the number of events we have on public land.
But you still have some events that are currently on public land, correct?
I do, yeah. Yeah, the 12 events I have, I got one in Texas state parks. I've got 4 on Colorado state parks. I've got 4 that are on U.S. Forest Service.
And those are the ones that you could potentially lose access to if they were to sell off land, correct? Now, the state parks you wouldn't have to worry about.
I think only one race, based on what they're discussing on the sale of land,
Right.
only Indian Creek, I think, would really be affected by that.
Okay.
Just because of the harsh environment that is fair play.
Right.
I can't see the Fed just being like, we're going to develop here.
Yeah, I mean,
Why?
it would cost more to develop, and it definitely would not be any affordable housing.
It's so stupid, man. It's such a harsh environment. Why do you want to build homes there?
Right.
Yeah. I think really only one race potentially would be affected by that.
Yeah.
But I don't see it happening. I really don't. But you never know.
Right. I mean, anything's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah. I think it's just, moving some of my races off of federal land, decreasing the number of races I have on federal land, being mindful of the challenges my state partners are facing as well.
Right.
And you just be proactive. And I think it earns you a lot of favor, and your land managers are more likely to get you that permit.
Right.
If you are,
Right,
if you're
right.
a good partner.
Right. But you got to be a good partner.
You got to be mindful. If
yeah.
you're mindful and you're helping, you're
Right.
advocating, you're doing work, you're not just coming in, putting on a race, making my money, and going home.
Yeah, trashing the place and then...
Yeah,
right.
it matters.
Right. If you had 1 minute to speak to Congress about this, what would you say?
Whoa.
Do your damn job.
No, man. Once upon a time, yeah. I mean, when I lived in Boston,
Right.
that would have been my response.
With a good accent.
Yeah, let me tell you something here, boss. Listen here, kids. I want to tell you a little something about that guy, John Muir. You know that guy? No? Well, he died a long time ago. That's probably why you don't know him. I love that accent so much, man.
I think it's great.
I hide it. Like if I get inebriated, it comes out.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. But most of the time I spend trying to hide it. I just applied for a program, actually, that I don't want to say what it is. I don't want to jinx anything, but it would be a tremendous opportunity for me to actually be mentored by individuals who work at the State House here in Colorado and in Washington, D.C., to actually speak directly to and with our congressional leaders.
So, like, actually going to the White House and sitting down with them, or going to the Capitol building and actually sitting and like having an actual meeting with them?
Yeah, like I would be trained to basically be one of the people that goes to Congress and talks to them. So this is why this is a great question for me. I think that I would remind Congress, as I have here on this episode, of what the public lands were set aside for, the conversations that were had around setting aside that land by Mr. Pinchot and by Mr. Muir, the Green New Deal, Civilian Conservation Corps, the hundreds of thousands of man hours of sweat equity that is not unlike the hundreds and thousands of hours, millions of hours of sweat equity that went into building our towers. You know?
Right, yeah.
Like, these hardened men lived in the wilderness and hand-built roads and trails and cabins and national park facilities. And
so what you're saying is we're weak.
It's part of it.
Right.
Yeah. I think I just want to, I would start by reminding them of the history.
Right.
Of why these lands were put aside and then, you know, the importance of those lands for our children and our children's children. And to ask them to please not only reinstate these employees, but to give them help.
Right.
And to not only refund the USDA, the federal government, but give them adequate funding. And that it's time for our nation to truly actually reinvest in our public lands. And a lot of what we wrote in the Explore Act speaks specifically about reinvesting in our public lands and its infrastructure.
Right.
And we have a lot of work to do, and there's a lot of us that want to do that work. And it truly benefits our people from a psychological, mental health perspective.
Right.
It contributes trillions to our economy every year. It is no longer just over there.
Right.
It's not where the wild beasts live. It is a vital part of our economy. It is a requirement.
Right.
And we need to do more to reinvest in it for all user groups and for the American people.
Right.
Yeah, that's probably what I would focus on.
Okay. Good stuff, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down.
It's my pleasure.
And talk to me about all this. I'm sure we could continue on for hours and hours and hours.
I'd love to do it again. You know?
I think we should. I think we should definitely sit down and maybe break down some more different ideas or whatever that was going on. Before we leave, though, I would like to have you. Where can people find you if they decide? If they decide, if some hunter is crazy enough to decide they want to take on an ultra marathon or even a trail race, because I mean, you don't just do ultra marathons. I mean, you do shorter distances.
Yeah.
I think personally they're a great way to train because there's food, there's drink.
Yeah, supported mountain shit.
There's other people out there that will tell you way more shit about themselves than you ever wanted to know.
Imagine if you're out hunting and you left your truck 5 miles ago and suddenly there's a buffet table.
Oh, dude. Heck yeah.
Right?
Good stuff.
In the Sangre, no, it's really cool. A lot of the bow hunters over the years have actually looked us up and actually ran in the race.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. We've had some hunters come out.
Nice.
This is where it's like, Okay, so I'm going to say this shit. And I'm going to start getting hate mail. It's great. I'm going to be threatened by hunters again, too.
So good. They'll probably hate me too, just for knowing you.
www.humanpotentialrunning.com. I'll throw my little graphic up. There's my website. We're here in the state of Colorado. Yeah. Check us out. We're different. We're very different. We're just a really very cool community of runners that just love to get together and be out in the woods.
We do hard shit. They're not easy races, right?
Yeah.
I mean, most of the other ones
they are hard, but we don't have a podium. We don't do age group
We're just
awards.
out having an adventure.
We welcome everybody. I personally do not care how it is that you identify. I personally do not care
how you vote,
the gender of the person that you like to sleep with. I don't care who you vote for. I don't care about your religion. I don't care.
Just come out and
I just have this neat place for you to come and have an adventure together.
Right.
That's it. That is it. And I'm really proud of it. And we welcome you to come out. And if you are a part of the hunting community, I'm going to send this to the meat cast guys, meat eaters.
Meat eater?
Yeah. Right. I'm going to, there's no reason why we all can't work together.
No, I totally agree. We should be able to work together because, I mean, what's at stake is...
It's all of us, man.
Yeah, right.
And it's going to take all of us.
It's not just me. It's not hunters. It's not just runners. It's not just mountain bikers. It's,
Let me ask you this. Do you think it's more effective if there's like the mountain bikers over here and the hunters over here and the anglers over here and the trail runners and we're all bitching from our corners? Or is it more powerful if we all unified as one group,
right,
and came together and said, no, all of us?
But that's the thing, because we live in such a divided country and a divided world and everything nowadays that, no, I don't like what the mountain bikers want to do, and so I don't want anything to do with them, so I've got to be opposite of whatever they're doing, despite we all really want the same thing. We all want to we all want to enjoy the land.
We all care, yeah.
Right? And so, that's definitely something that needs to be worked on all sides, for sure, and I think having this conversation is definitely a way to start hopefully breaking those barriers down and, try to get more people involved in this because, I don't want to lose hunting land.
I don't want you to lose hunting land.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've been able to hunt, and I don't want, the first year or two I get to enjoy it and then it's gone. I mean, it doesn't work for me.
I don't think that's what's going to happen.
I don't think so either, but
they're not shutting the forest down this year or anything. They've been told specifically they are not to shut the forest down.
Right.
But are you going to be able to get your tag?
Oh, yeah.
Is the gate going to be closed?
Right. As long as I can hunt, I don't care.
Yeah.
I mean, when it comes down to it, as long as I can go out and hunt, yay. That's what I want to be able to do. I don't want to lose land to dumb shit. That's for sure. I mean, if we're going to sell it for affordable housing, it needs to be affordable housing. It doesn't need to be, my buddy over here can buy all that land and he can put fifth and sixth homes on that for people. And they're only going to be $6 million. It doesn't work. We need to really actually do those things. We
all got a lot of work to do, and we got to find a way to come together to do it. Right. So I appreciate you welcoming me onto your program to in your home. Talk to your hunter friends and to our trail runner friends that might be listening to this and watch whatever it is. Right. We're all in this together. We all got to work together. So thanks for listening and hearing a different perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I do want to leave everybody with this. Go to the U.S. Capitol switchboard and call them at 202-224-3121 and find out who your representative is, and you can let them know what you think about them trying to sell off public lands. Another great resource you can use is the Sportsman Alliance. If you go and check them out, they bring up all the different issues that affect sportsmen. So I would like to say thank you to John for the interview. And from the Shifted Hunter, let's get shifted!